past. But here at Auschwitz, there is one building. It's on the edge of the camp, and it is a very ordinary building. And it has more significance than others, though, because it did belong to Rudolf Höss, who was the notorious commandant. Some called him the butcher of Auschwitz. It was from inside this building that he choreographed some of the killing that we saw here. And this building has now been bought, after being lived in for years, by a Polish family, by an anti-extremism organisation. And they invited me to take a look around. This unassuming house in the Polish town of Oswiecim is opening its doors to its chilling past.
In many Jewish houses you can see mezuzah on the door. It's not a Jewish house, but we want to show that this house is open for everyone, and for Jewish people was not allowed to enter the house during the World War II, and now they are a part of the new history of this house.
Overlooking Auschwitz I, it was the home of the Nazi commandant Rudolf Höss and his family. The dream life of the family is depicted in the Oscar-winning film Zone of Interest. His wife called the house a paradise, a house from where her husband planned the murder of 1.1 million people. The top floor of the house was actually built by prisoners to house the rapidly expanding Höss family, including the fifth child who was actually born in this house. And so much was done to shield the children from what was happening right next door, including frosting the windows so they couldn't see out. But if you had opened a window, just beyond the trees you can see here is the gas chamber at Auschwitz I, where up to 600 prisoners could be murdered in just 20 minutes. And the elaborate deception continued. Behind this white wall, the family had a huge garden with a playground and a swimming pool. And beyond that is Auschwitz I. Guards inside the camp were told to start up their car engines and their motorbike engines to mask the noise of the horror that was unfolding in the gas chambers. For years, a Polish family lived here, but today it opens as a site for halting extreme and anti-Semitic behaviour.
We all have neighbors. We all have a house next door. What we know now is that extremism, anti-Semitism can lurk as close as any of our houses next door. And the symbolism of this house, I think, really captures that moment.
Höss was hung for war crimes metres away from this house. It now stands as a symbol in the fight against hate and a warning that even in the ordinary, evil can lurk. Well, joining me now live from the house is Mary Fulbrook, who is a professor of German history at University College London. Mary, we've talked already about how chilling it is to be in the house. But I know when you walk in, there is only his name mentioned once. They don't want the commandant to be the focus of that house. They want to focus on combating extremism in the future. And they also want to remember the victims. But I found it interesting talking to a British rabbi, Rabbi Wittenberg, who said to me, yes, while we should remember the victims, it is also important that we have a conversation about the perpetrators. How should that conversation start and how should it be tackled?
I think that it's really vital to talk about the perpetrators. I don't think you can memorialise victims and feel so unbelievably sad at the tragic fates of so many people if you don't also try and understand how it happened and how it was possible, how it could happen. And I think when you're talking about the perpetrators, you have also to focus not only at the people at the top, Rudolf Höss, obviously, the commandant of Auschwitz, in whose house I'm standing at the moment, obviously Hitler, Himmler, Heydrich, all the other people at the top, but you have to focus on this much wider system of low-level perpetrators and collaborators and the people who are complicit in so many ways, in civilian occupations, as administrators, as well as the people who are pulling the trigger, shooting the guns, killing people in the ditches and ravines of Eastern Europe, or starving people in ghettos. So I think the conversation about the perpetrators is essential if we want to understand that never again, the supposed lesson of Auschwitz, never again can't be achieved if we don't understand that there was far more to the Holocaust than simply this particular, simply it's the wrong word, but than just this specific nexus of evil, this absolute epitome and icon of absolute evil in Auschwitz. So yes, a conversation about perpetration, collaboration, complicity is essential.
Mary, they're sometimes called the ordinary Nazis, and I know you've written a book about this as well, looking into the psychology of some of these people, because it wasn't always about political ideology, the things that drove them. What were the motivations of some people who were complicit?
Yeah. Thank you.
Many different motivations, and I think you have to understand that people had many different roles in life. There are ordinary administrators who thought they were just doing their job for their state, for their nation, or who are simply careerists, wanted to go up the career ladder, change their colours very quickly. We see this again and again with political changes of regime, that people just switch from one camp to another when they think it's a quick way up. So you've got careerists, you've got opportunists. Those are people who have choices in professional positions. You've also got people who had very little choice at all in life. If you look across Eastern Europe at the many ordinary people who were requisitioned, to use the Nazi word, into facilitating roundups of Jews, identifying who was Jewish in their village, sorting out trucks, fences, wood, to build temporary ghettos, holding pens for people, digging ditches, and then facilitating the transport of Jews to the death site, facilitating the transport away from the death site of the clothes, the shoes, the possessions of the murdered Jews. These people very often had very little choice indeed. They may have been tempted by benefiting from the crimes committed, benefiting from the property. They may have been tempted by the copious amounts of alcohol that people consumed. One book by a colleague in America, Ed Westerman, is called Drunk on Genocide. Alcohol was crucial to the killings in the open. So many different motives. But I think when we look at it, what's awful to contemplate is that once a system of collective violence gets off the ground, people just get drawn into it one way or another and find it ever more difficult to pull themselves out once they've made concessions, once they've started thinking of people as other, or started thinking in terms of Aryan and non-Aryan categories, and thinking some people are subhuman and we are the master race, we're entitled to expand, to take over living room, to Germanise, then people just get swept up in it. That's what we have to try and understand, and not just at the level of the individual psychology of, let's say, the commandant of Auschwitz, important though that is.
So fascinating talking to you, Mary. I'm pleased that you're with us throughout the day. Thank you so much.